The crystal wine glass trembles faintly in my hand, a shiver I can't quite suppress as I set it beside the roast. My grandmother's dining table gleams under the chandelier, mine, not his, bought with money he'll never trace. I adjust the platter, the meat's glaze catching the light while Mark's voice fills the room, loud and brash, like a radio tuned too high. He's mid-story, regaling his family with his latest financial conquest, some stock deal he swears tripled our worth overnight. Beatrice Taylor, 42, poised and silent, watching them swallow every word. Beatrice is just lucky I handle the finances, Mark Evans, 45, declares, smirking at the nodding heads around the table, his clan, always so eager to applaud. You know how these secretary types are. Give 'em a little promotion, and they think they're Wall Street. His laugh booms, a sound that echoes off the high ceilings of this house he assumes he owns. I pour more wine, the red liquid swirling in the glass, and offer a thin smile, the kind they expect from the quiet wife. His sister Lisa, 40, lets out that shrill laugh of hers, a noise that sets my teeth on edge, like nails on glass. "Oh, Mark, you're too good to her," she says, twirling her fork. "Remember when she was just answering phones at that bank? Barely knew how to balance a checkbook, I bet." The table chuckles, a chorus of condescension, and I catch Margaret's eye, my mother-in-law, 68, watching me with that pitying look she's perfected over the years. She's wearing the designer dress I gave her last Christmas, the one Mark claimed as his gift. If they only knew. I smooth the tablecloth, my fingers brushing the embroidered edge, and glance at the roast. Perfectly cooked, hours of work they'll credit to my domestic talents. Mark leans back, his chair creaking, and gestures with his wineglass, sloshing a drop onto the linen. "I mean, look at this spread," he says. "Beatrice does all right with the small stuff, I'll give her that. But the big wins, that's all me." His eyes gleam with pride, oblivious to the irony dripping from every word. I move to the sideboard, retrieving the carving knife, its blade glinting as I set it beside him. "Careful with that, honey," he jokes, winking at George, his father, 70, who nods approvingly. "Wouldn't want her getting ideas above her station?" Another round of laughter ripples through the room, and I tilt my head, letting it wash over me. They don't see the files I've tucked away, the ledgers I've pored over late at night, while Mark snores. They don't know this house, this table, this life. It's mine. Built from years of climbing a ladder he's too arrogant to notice. The air hums with their chatter, a smug symphony of assumptions. And I take my seat, folding my hands in my lap. Mark's voice rises again, spinning another tale of his brilliance. And I listen, my glass steady now. Let him talk. Let them laugh. Every word he says, every jab they toss my way, I'm filing it away, a quiet tally in my mind. Tomorrow's coming, and with it, a reckoning they'll never see. For now, I sip my wine, the taste sharp on my tongue, and wait. Margaret pats my hand, her rings cold against my skin, and the light catches the hem of her dress, silk, exorbitant, my gift masquerading as Mark's generosity. "More wine, Margaret?" I offer, my voice soft, measured, the way they like it. "Oh yes, dear," she coos, her tone dripping with that practiced condescension she reserves for me. "You know, men just understand these things better. You shouldn't worry your pretty head about finances. My George always said so." She glances at her husband, George Evans, 70, who grunts in agreement, his jowls quivering as he slices into the roast. "Damn right," George booms, his voice carrying over the clink of cutlery. "Beatrice, you still fiddling around at that bank?" Waste of time, if you ask me. Woman's place is the home. Maybe give Mark some kids to brag about instead of playing at business. He chuckles, a deep rumble, and Lisa joins in, her high-pitched giggle slicing through the air. I nod serenely, pouring another splash of wine into Margaret's glass, my movements deliberate, calm. If they only knew. I've been watching Mark's business for months, His hidden accounts, the late-night calls he thinks I don't hear, the dinners with Kelly that always run long. My position as CEO of one of the city's biggest banks has its perks. One's my dear husband, lounging at the head of this table, hasn't begun to suspect. The bank's been doing well, actually, I say, quietly, testing the waters, but George waves a dismissive hand. Good for you, keeping busy, he mutters, chewing loudly. Still, Mark's the one with the real head for numbers. Lisa leans forward, her eyes glinting with mischief. Oh, Beatrice, don't take it personally, she says, her voice syrupy. We all know you married up. Mark's the golden boy. Always has been. She smirks, and Margaret nods, patting my hand again, like I'm a child who's spilled her milk. I catch the flicker of Mark's grin, smug and satisfied, as he swirls his wine. She's lucky to have me, he adds, and the room hums with their approval. I tilt my head, letting their words settle around me like dust. Every barb, every laugh, I tuck away, adding it to the dossier I've built. Transaction records, surveillance photos, emails he thinks are deleted. They see a secretary who got lucky, a wife who nods and serves. They don't see the woman who controls the accounts he's been draining, the one who's tracked every cent he's funneled into his secret schemes. The roast sits half-eaten, the wine glasses gleam, and I sit still, a quiet island in their noisy sea. Tomorrow, I'll show them what lucky really means. For now, I pour more wine, my smile unwavering, and let them underestimate me one last time. Mark gestures grandly with his wineglass, the liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim, recounting a brilliant investment that doubled our money he thinks is ours. Closed the deal last week, he brags, his voice swelling with pride. Doubled it in 7 days flat. That's the kind of move that keeps us in this house. His eyes sweep the room, taking in the polished wood, the art on the walls. All of it mine, not his. I smooth my Chanel dress, the fabric cool against my skin. Another purchase he assumes he funded. Beatrice is great with the small stuff. Dinner parties, the household, he says, leaning back, his chair creaking under his weight. But the big decisions? That's why she has me. He winks at Lisa, who snickers, and George grunts his approval, a piece of roast dangling from his fork. Margaret beams, her pride in her son lighting up her face, oblivious to the truth stitched into every seam of this night. I suppress a smile, my fingers tracing the edge of my napkin. The real money, my money, sits safe, tucked away in accounts he can't touch, while his brilliant moves bleed our joint funds dry. Every boast he makes, every self-satisfied grin, I document it. Dates, amounts, lies piling up in my files. The roast looks lovely, doesn't it? I say, my voice light, redirecting for a moment. Tried a new recipe. Mark barely glances at it. Yeah, nice job, honey, he mutters, already launching into another tale of his genius. The table hums with his words, their laughter a dull roar in my ears. I sip my wine, the sharpness grounding me, and watch him preen. Let him have this moment, this last night of swagger. Tomorrow, the boardroom waits, and with it, the end of his little game. For now, I sit, quiet and still, the wife they expect, while the CEO they'll meet sharpens her knife. The house falls silent after they leave, a heavy stillness settling over the rooms as I sit in my office, the glow of my laptop casting shadows on the walls. Mark's laughter drifts from his study down the hall, muffled but unmistakable, his voice thick with the arrogance he wore all night. He's on the phone again, no doubt bragging to one of his cronies about the investments he thinks secure his throne. I lean back in my chair, the leather creaking softly, and open the files I've spent months compiling. Spreadsheets of his hidden accounts, photos of his business dinners, emails he's too careless to delete. Every lie he told at dinner sits here, catalogued, waiting. My phone buzzes on the desk, a sharp vibration that pulls my eyes from the screen. It's Kelly Parker, 29, my head of security masquerading as his assistant, her text lighting up the dark. Meeting still on. Everything's set. I type back, my fingers steady. Perfect. The word feels final, a quiet seal on the plan we've built together. Mark thinks Kelly's his loyal shadow, flirting with him over late-night coffee, planning his getaway with the money he's siphoned. He doesn't know she's mine, planted there to watch, to record every flirtatious email, every inappropriate touch, every questionable transfer. If he only knew. I close the laptop, the click echoing in the room, and glance at the clock. Past midnight now. Tomorrow looms, the board meeting set for 9 a.m., sharp and unforgiving. Mark's still laughing, his voice a distant hum, convinced he's the smartest man in this house, maybe in the city. I stand, stretching slightly, and move to the window, the city skyline glittering beyond the glass. He's plotting his next move, his escape with what he thinks is our fortune. But the real fortune, mine, rests safely out of reach. Let him laugh, let him scheme. I've been patient, meticulous, and tomorrow, the mask I've worn for years slips off. I turn from the window, the night wrapping around me, and head to bed, my steps silent, my mind clear. The early morning light glints off the bank's glass facade as I pull into my reserved parking spot, the one marked CEO that Mark's never noticed in all his visits. I step out, the air crisp against my skin, and smooth my Armani suit, another expense he assumes he covered. Kelly meets me at the elevator, tablet in hand, her professional calm a stark contrast to the chaos she's about to help unleash. "He's in his office," she reports, her voice low, steady. "Practicing his acceptance speech for the promotion. Been at it since 6 a.m. I nod, stepping inside, the doors sliding shut with a soft hiss. "He also made dinner reservations," she adds, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Le Cirque, table for two. Not for you, I assume." I raise an eyebrow, the corner of my mouth twitching. "Security's ready," I reply, my tone even, unhurried. "It might get emotional." She taps her tablet, pulling up the day's agenda, and I catch a glimpse of the boardroom layout. Every seat accounted for, every file prepped. Mark's excitement fuels my calm, a quiet fire stoking beneath my ribs as we rise to the top floor. The elevator dings, and I step into the hall, my heels clicking against the marble. My assistant, Daniel, 32, greets me at the office door, his clipboard in hand. "Board members are here early, as requested," he says, falling into step beside me. "The audit team's ready with their presentation." I nod, entering my corner office, the city sprawling beyond the windows like a map I've conquered. "And Mark?" I ask, setting my bag on the desk. "Still preening," Daniel replies, a faint grin breaking through his professionalism. "Thinks today's his coronation." I settle into my chair, the leather cool against my back, and glance at the clock. 8:30 a.m. Half an hour until the reckoning. Mark's out there, pacing his office, rehearsing lines about leadership and vision, oblivious to the trap snapping shut. I've tracked his every move, his secret account at my bank, his shell companies, his plans to vanish with Kelly and the funds he's stolen. The evidence waits in my briefcase, a thick stack of proof he'll never talk his way out of. I lean forward, resting my hands on the desk, and feel the shift inside me. Indignation hardening into certainty. The boardroom calls, and I'm ready to answer. The boardroom falls silent as I enter, the long table stretching before me like a battlefield. Mark sits near the middle, practically bouncing with anticipation, his tie loosened, his grin wide. He's never been to a board meeting before, never thought to question why. And now he's here, expecting triumph. I take my place at the head, my briefcase clicking open, and nod to Daniel, who begins distributing folders. Thick, damning packets that hit the wood with a soft thud. Mark's eyes flicker to me, confusion creasing his brow. "Beatrice, what are you doing here?" he asks, his voice carrying a nervous edge. "Secretaries just leave the coffee." "Actually, Mark," I say, my tone cool, deliberate. "I called this meeting." I pause, letting the words settle, and open my folder, the rustle of paper loud in the hush. We have several items to discuss today about your activities. His grin falters, and he flips open his copy, his hands fumbling as photos spill out. Him, with Kelly at dimly lit restaurants, receipts from Tiffany's for gifts I never received, bank statements showing transfers to accounts he thought hidden. The board watches, some hiding smiles, others leaning forward as his face pales, then shifts to a sickly green. "My promotion?" he starts, his voice rising, but I cut him off with a raised hand. "Yes, about that," I say, sliding a document forward. "As CEO of this bank, I've had to address some concerns." The word lands like a stone, CEO, and his jaw drops, the room tilting under him. "But you're just a secretary," he stammers, grasping at the lie he's clung to for years. "That was quite a few promotions ago, dear," I reply, my voice steady, almost gentle. "Though you never asked about my actual position. Too busy managing our finances, I suppose." He flips through the pages, hands shaking. Emails outlining his embezzlement, surveillance stills, records of unauthorized loans from company funds. "This is a mistake," he sputters, sweat beading on his forehead. "I can explain." I tilt my head, meeting his wild gaze. "Oh, I'm sure you can," I say. "Just like you can explain the offshore account you opened last month. Or the shell companies you created with bank funds. The same funds you've been bragging about as your brilliant moves." The board shifts, a murmur rippling through them, but I keep my focus on Mark. "How did you—" he begins, then stops, realization dawning too late. "No?" I finish for him, my tone sharp now, cutting through his panic. "I don't just work here, Mark. I run this bank. Those accounts you thought were so clever? They're at my bank. Those investments you crowed about? I've tracked everyone." His hands grip the table, knuckles white, as the truth sinks in. Mrs. Carter, a board member, clears her throat. "Mrs. Taylor, should we proceed with the formal accusations?" I nod, closing my folder with a snap. "Yes, I think we should." Kelly steps forward, her tablet replaced with another stack of documents, and I watch Mark's world crumble. "Mark, you're terminated for cause, effective immediately," I say, my voice ringing clear. "The evidence of your embezzlement has been forwarded to the authorities. Security will escort you out." He stares at me, mouth agape. A man undone by his own arrogance. If he only knew how long I've waited for this. Security steps in, two figures in dark suits flanking Mark as he slumps in his chair, the fight draining from him. I extract another document from my portfolio, sliding it across the table. Divorce papers, crisp and final. "You can't do this to me," he shrieks, his voice cracking, raw with desperation. "I'm your husband." I meet his gaze, unflinching. "About that," I say, tapping the papers. "Given the evidence of your misconduct and affairs, my lawyers expect this to be straightforward." He stares at the pages, hands trembling, as the room holds its breath. I press a button on my phone, and the boardroom screen flickers to life, revealing the bank's reception area. There they sit, Margaret, George, Lisa, watching a mirrored presentation of Mark's disgrace, their faces frozen in shock. I'd invited them to celebrate his promotion, a cruel irony now unfolding live. Margaret's wails pierce the feed. "How could you?" mingling with Lisa's gasps and George's angry mutters. Mark twists in his seat, seeing them for the first time, and his voice drops to a whisper. "My family. They'll never believe this." "I took care of that too," I say, my tone even, almost conversational. "They're learning everything, Mark. The embezzlement, the affairs, the lies. They're discovering all those gifts you took credit for, the vacations you claimed to fund, were mine." He slumps further, defeated, as security moves closer. "But our house, the cars," he mumbles, grasping at straws. "My house," I correct gently. "My grandmother's, actually. The cars, the vacation homes, the wines you showed off, all purchased with my money. You were too busy assuming I was a simple secretary to ask." The boardroom remains silent, the weight of my words settling over them. Kelly gathers her papers, her roll complete, and I stand, smoothing my suit. One more thing, I add, my voice rising slightly. Remember last night's dinner when you all laughed about me being the secretary who got lucky? When Margaret complained about my cooking and suggested I focus on being a better wife? Mark nods numbly, his eyes glazed. I've arranged a lunch today, I continue. Your family will dine in the executive dining room as my guests. They might enjoy seeing where their simple daughter-in-law works. Though I apologize if the potatoes aren't up to Margaret's standards. Security takes his arms, leading him out, and I hear the commotion from the reception. Margaret's sobs, Lisa's stunned silence, George's bluster fading to nothing. Daniel appears at my elbow, his voice low. Your in-laws are quite distressed. Shall I cancel lunch? I gather my files, a faint smile tugging at my lips. No, I say, turning to the door. It's time they learned who they've been looking down on all these years. And Daniel, make sure the potatoes are perfect. I step into the hall, the echo of Mark's defeat ringing behind me, and feel the triumph settle in, cool and certain. 6 months have passed, and I host a dinner in my home. My grandmother's home, never Mark's. The dining room alive with the hum of board members and colleagues, their voices weaving praise for the bank's record profits under my leadership. The chandelier glints above the table, casting light on the roast I've perfected. A quiet nod to the night that started it all. I move among my guests, my Chanel dress brushing the floor, and feel the weight of triumph settle comfortably, a steady pulse beneath my calm. My phone buzzes in my pocket, a news alert flashing across the screen. Mark Evans accepts plea deal, 5 years for embezzlement. I smile faintly, slipping it back into place. Margaret's text from that last dinner lingers in my mind, and I pull it up as I pour wine for Mrs. Carter. Thank you for dinner, dear, but try harder with the potatoes, she'd written, her condescension preserved in pixels. I'd replied then, my finger swift. Such a shame. You'll never taste the new recipe. Now, her apologies clutter my inbox, teary voicemails, letters begging forgiveness. But they ring hollow against the years of her disdain. I sip my wine, the taste sharp and familiar, and glance at the safe in my office through the open door. The files, the video of that boardroom showdown, sit there still, not for revenge, but as a reminder of what patience can build. Mark's family crumbled after that day, their social standing shattered by the headlines, their boasts about his genius turned to ash. I lean against the doorway, watching my guests laugh, and know I've won, not just over him, but over their blindness. The potatoes tonight are flawless, and I savor the irony alone. 5 years later, I stand at a podium in a sleek conference hall, the air buzzing with the energy of women in business, their eyes fixed on me as I speak about leadership and power. The topic isn't revenge or justice, but something subtler, being underestimated, a strength I have turned into a weapon. My voice carries, calm and steady, recounting the climb from secretary to CEO without naming Mark, though his shadow lingers in every word. A young woman, Emily, 25, steps to the microphone during the Q&A, her voice eager. "What's the secret to your success?" she asks. And I pause, thinking of Mark in his rented room, a junior bookkeeper now, his arrogance a faded memory. "Pay attention," I tell her, my tone warm but firm. "Keep records. Never let their assumptions become your reality." The crowd nods, scribbling notes, and I step back, my smile small but genuine. My success towers over his ruin. Record profits, a merger on the horizon that'll make me one of the country's top CEOs, and I feel the quiet thrill of it. Emily lingers after, thanking me, and I see myself in her ambition, a spark I nurtured while Mark complained about my hobby of night classes for my MBA. Back in my office that evening, I review the merger proposal, the city lights sprawling beyond the glass. The bank's grown under my hand, a testament to years of work he never questioned, too busy preening to wonder why I stayed at the same little bank. I close the file, leaning back, and think of that last dinner, his family's laughter, their certainty I was nothing. They were wrong, and I've let their error carry me here. Sometimes, the best victory is simply being seen. Late at night, I sit in my corner office, the hum of the city a distant pulse beyond the windows. The merger's signed, the ink still fresh, and I trace my fingers over the safe, its contents a silent monument. Files, photos, the boardroom video I've kept not out of spite, but as proof of what I've built. I recall that last dinner, Mark's voice booming through the house, his family's laughter ringing off the walls. The signs were there, the house, the cars, the lifestyle they credited to his fictional genius. But they never looked, never asked. I was the quiet secretary who'd married up, nothing more, until I wasn't. My phone buzzes, his last text from years ago glowing on the screen. I never knew who you were. I had replied cool and final. You never asked. Now he's out of prison, scraping by in a rented room, women wary of the convicted embezzler with no assets left to flaunt. I lean back, the leather chair creaking, and picture Margaret's face, that day, in the reception area, her wails echoing as the truth hit. She'd texted me once more, months after his trial. I should have paid more attention to who you really were, not who we assumed. I'd answered, yes, you should have. By the way, I've perfected my potato recipe. Too bad you'll never try it. The memory curves my lips into a smile, faint but real. I close my eyes, the silence wrapping around me, and feel the weight of years lift. 15 of them, from answering phones to running this bank, all while playing the role they expected. They underestimated me, and I let them, until the moment was right. Sometimes, revenge isn't getting even. It's revealing who you were all along, and watching them realize too late.